the way this screen is, it's like I feel like I'm looking at the corner. Oh, yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I hope you enjoyed our program. My name is Jessica Ramirez. I also go by Jess. I use she and they pronouns, and I'm a volunteer with Indigenous Showcase. This is my second year being able to curate the Indigenous Showcase for Seattle Queer Film Festival. I'm honored to have Thirza, Jazmin, and Glenn with us this evening, whose films you just enjoyed. We're going to go around and have a quick introduction, name, pronouns, and then just tell us where you are. Give us a land acknowledgement. And I just want to say that I'm a guest on Duwamish territory, presently known as Seattle, Washington. And I just thank you all for joining us this evening. And then I'll pass it to Thirza.
Yeah, hi, my name is Thirza Cuthand, pronouns she, her. I'm in Toronto, which is the land of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit.
Thirza, who do you want to give it to?
Oh, I'll give it to Jazmin.
Hi, I'm Jazmin Smith. I'm in Vancouver. I'm in, my pronouns are she and her, and I am in Vancouver, so I'm on Squamish territory. Oh, Glenn.
Oh, yeah, sure. So, Unakut, Glengeru Vunga. Hello, my name is Glenn Gear. I go by he, him. I'm currently in Montreal. That's territory of Jojenge and the traditional Mohawk and territory near Ganawaging. I'm originally from Corner Brook, Newfoundland, and my cultural heritage is Inuit from Nunatsiavut, which is northern Labrador in Canada. So we're the most southerly of all the Inuit regions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, all three, for being here. And just so the audience knows, we might have one more filmmaker meeting with us. That's Kim Hao Lee, who did the film that is called Ka'aina, which is the film about the houseless person that you saw in the program today. And then I also just want to give a big shout out to the other two films that we were able to see this evening, filmmakers who couldn't be here. There was the Rogers and then Kapai Mahu, which is the animated film that you were all able to see. Gorgeous movies that we all had the pleasure of enjoying this evening. Glenn, I'll start with you since your film was the first one that we got to check out this evening. You are an interdisciplinary artist, and I love weird. The weirder, the better. First, can you give me the pronunciation of your film?
Yeah, it's Katinnagak. So Katinnagak just means together. And when I was thinking about the piece, it's a traditional Inuit throat song. So traditionally, it's two women who are singing to one another, sort of rocking back and forth. And I thought with this archival recording that I came across, it would be really fun to take that archive and to kind of re-envision it and think about animals that were throat singing to one another, even predator and prey animals. I thought that was kind of fun. So those are all animals that are indigenous to my region. Many of them are black and white, so black and white fur. So you have these black and white throat singing animals set against this kaleidoscopic beadwork. And so the beadwork is based on beadwork that I've done. I've photographed it and then digitally manipulated it into these exploding kaleidoscopes and these very jewel-like colors. So yeah, I really like working with archives and kind of inserting myself into that and making things that are maybe not always, but every now and then I like to create things that are full of joy and craft, and they're kind of celebratory. So that's that piece.
It's gorgeous. I was sharing with folks earlier that I've seen all of your films 3 times each. And
Oh
I
my
still,
goodness.
when I watch yours, I really do think of it as a kaleidoscope. And I actually have one right here, and
Oh, nice.
it's exactly what I thought of when I was watching the film. And every time I see it, I always like I'm dancing to
Yeah,
it,
good. Yeah,
dancing to the
kids
beat
love
a
it.
little
Kids
bit.
love it. Yeah.
How did you come across the archival audio? And just curious, how do you zoom in on your scope, considering sometimes archival footage can be so daunting?
It can be so daunting.
The other 2 films that we were able to see this evening, filmmakers zoom in on your.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you getting that echo too?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like from beyond the grave. I'm always searching through archives, mostly photo archives. But if you're lucky enough, you'll come across some audio as well. And if you're really lucky, you'll get film archives. I'm really interested in just kind of parsing those materials and sort of seeing what's out there. For my region, which is Nunatsiavut, again, Northern Labrador, the archives are fairly small. They're not that extensive. So anything that I can get, anything that I've gleaned, whether it's through the federal archives, provincial archives, I've found stuff on Labrador Inuit in the Library of Congress in the US as a subsection. So it involves a lot of detective work, but it's also, I don't know, it's fun to sort of see what's out there. I recently came across some images of Inuit who were behind the camera, like really early stuff, almost like 90 years ago. But they were, these Inuit were learning how to film. And for me, I found that really fascinating to see Inuit behind the camera that early on, that it wasn't the expected colonial view, but sort of an intervention into that. So it's hard to find the archives, but I think because, again, the Inuit of Labrador, the Nunatsiavut, it's hard to find. So it's out there, but I just keep digging around.
Yes, please keep digging and making weird, amazing films like that get to also honor your story and your peoples. Thank you. Jazmin, thank you so much for the film, I Am Me. I really loved this story and am somewhat familiar with Wapakoni and how that process happens. I'm wondering if you can tell folks who are watching a little bit more of the process, what Wapakoni is. And then my question for you is just like, what inspired you to turn the camera onto yourself? And yeah, I'll leave it there for now.
Okay, so when I decided to make a film, I actually didn't know what it was going to be about. I just found this company through a friend, and it was Wapakoni. And they were making films for Indigenous filmmakers or for people who wanted to make films. So I decided to sign up, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll just make a film. I don't know what it's going to be about. And then I thought about making it about my life so that people can try to understand two-spirited and transgender people more. And I wanted to help raise awareness for transgender Indigenous folks. And that's how my whole film came into place. And with Wapakoni, I've been working with them a lot lately. They're an amazing company that supports Indigenous filmmakers throughout Canada, and they make all these they do all these stopovers throughout Canada, and they just help filmmakers and people who want to make films get their story out there. And so far they've helped my story just go global, and it's just been amazing, and it's just been a blessing. And then meeting other filmmakers in the process, and yeah, it's amazing.
So it's like these mobile film units, and you are able to have access to gear. Are they also teaching you how to use things, or did you go in knowing exactly?
I actually, they had a crew. They had a crew. Sorry, they had a crew come in, and the crew does everything, right? And so when I came there, I just had to make the script. I had to make a script and explain my story. So I did. And I slowly learned some things like about editing. I got to edit my own film. I did voiceover. I got to, do the voiceover, and that was fun, experiencing all that. And then the more and more my film has grown, the more and more I want to get into film and make more film and, help two-spirited Indigenous people out there. And that's exactly what I want to do.
And what are you doing? How are you continuing that growth in your filmmaking career?
Oh, well, I started, I'm starting another project for myself. I'm starting another project, another series of short films. And I'm going to school for film, which is starting next year.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I really wish we could have met in person for this festival. I probably would have paid you to do my makeup and hair had we been all here in person. You look fabulous, and I love your earrings. And you talked about you and your husband's jewelry and art company. I'm wondering if you can tell folks more about how they can support y'all's work.
Oh, so my husband, when me and my husband met, I was working at a jewelry store / bead store, and my husband made jewelry / like all this type of jewelry, native jewelry. And so when we met, we ended up getting married. We ended up forming this business together, Grizzly Turtle Jewelry and Art. And you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and we just blend our versions of native art together, and with sterling silver, natural stones, crystals, feathers. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks so much. And then just one follow-up question. In making the film, and from what I understand of Wapakoni, they support and help you with the distribution and getting people to see it. I'm wondering, who did you first show the film to? Who was the first person to see it outside of you?
The first person to see it was my husband, because he was here with me. And then it was my mom. And my mother was she cried. She was really happy for me. And then the first film festival it was in was the Vancouver Queer Film Festival.
Well, congratulations. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I found it deeply powerful and just excited that you're here with us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I did a lot of research about you. There's a lot on the internet about you too, being an activist, a civility rights activist, a filmmaker. I mean, you have the gamut of experience and just the work that you do in community. I really loved your story of Woman Dress, and thinking about how we hear stories. And I just love the way that you talked about this narrative that storytelling doesn't end when you continue to tell the story. That good storytelling is that it's like kind of endless, and it's just like this ongoing process. I just so curious, like, how do you continue the story of Woman Dress? What do you see as like the chapter of how you kind of fill in that this story continues with this film project?
Yeah, I mean, the story of Woman Dress is like so the term two spirits like still relatively new, but I mean, I kind of think the continuing story of Woman Dress is just like the two spirit community, the Indigenous spirit community, and sort of like all our networks of like being and supporting each other, and what colonization's done to us, but also like ways we like resisted and like continued loving each other and being part of our families and part of community. Yeah, I think it's a community story.
And in the story, you also talked about how, your grandfather, and in the Cree language, there is no such thing as gender pronouns. I'm curious, like, what do you think your grandpa would think about this film and in the world that we're living in right now?
I mean, like my Auntie Beth actually wanted to make a book about it, and because she'd heard the story first, obviously she's the one who tells it, but he was like kind of resistant, because I think, I mean, he was Anglican, so he was very, you know, Christian, and had that whole thing that that's very. And he wasn't against Two Spirit people, because when I came out to him, he was like fine about it, but you know, like I think he was unsure about releasing that kind of story into the world. But I think if he was still alive now, it seemed like how society was now and how, like, what it means to our community, I think he would be fine with it. I think he'd probably be proud, actually, that it was out there now, finally.
Thank you. And through pandemic, it sounds that, you know, I know for a lot of folks, things are kind of an up and down. It sounds like you've been pretty busy. What is some projects that you have coming out the gate?
Yeah, so I'm in post right now. I actually directed my first dramatic short, so it's like with like live actors, and we had like, the big crew, and it was like we timed it, so it was like between like first and second wave, and we had to follow all the COVID rules and get people tested and stuff, and yeah, so I had that big shoot, and we're like in post on that right now, and hoping it will make the festival circuit next year. And I've been working on a feature film called Evil Fire, which is what the short is based on the feature. So it was made in the shorts to features program at the Harold Greenberg Fund here in Canada. So yeah, so it's like been this long, like years long journey of like working on this feature film, and we're hoping to like apply for production funding next year for that.
Nice. I just saw a little question pop up. What is the name of your new film again?
The new film is called Cuesta Seu, which means she's whistling, and it's the story is it's this woman in Saskatoon who gets abducted by a cab driver, which is a thing that's happening to Indigenous women in Saskatoon, and she whistles at the Northern Lights, which causes this sort of reaction that helps her get out of trouble. And I won't spoil the ending, but it's like, yeah, sort of supernatural, sort of like taking pre-beliefs, and it's got a twist to it though. But yeah,
Cool. Oh, that sounds exciting. Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much. Thanks for letting us show your film Woman Dress here. I just love the story, and I love the mixed media animation in it. You also work with archival footage as well, and curious, like, how do you choose what to overlay, and how do you kind of zoom in on that, considering the whole library at your fingertips?
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate because we got to use the NFB library, like the NFB archival library. So it was like basically going through their archives and like coming up with like images that I wanted her to be connected to the land. So it was like shot with green screen, and then all the archival is like on the green screen. So it was like connecting her to mostly like prairies and bison, and you know, like sort of, I wanted to sort of recreate the prairies, but in archival footage, and there is some Plains Indians in archival footage from like, I think it looks like it's from the 70s, but it's like, you know, just wanted to have like footage of, you know, the teepees that are actually painted and not just like plain canvas teepees that we see now.
Oh, thank you. Glenn, what do you have going on these days? How has the pandemic been treating you on your project?
Yeah, I've been pretty busy. So I just finished a co-collaboration with another Inuk artist, Nancy Saunders. And we did an animation sort of in response to one of the paintings by the group of 7. And that was really fun. So we just wrapped up about, I think, just last week. And coming up, I have a big installation at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. There's a new Inuit Art Center that's opening up. So I have an installation inside of a steel container that involves a mural, video projection, sound. So it's going to be an intense couple of months. This is coming up in the next couple of weeks. So It's oddly busy. And I have to work out the whole COVID travel stuff, which terrifies me a little bit, but there you go.
Yeah, totally. No, yeah, we're all working around it. It's like hour by hour, huh?
Yeah.
Jazmin, I heard you talking about another project that you're working on with Wapakoni, and then I'm curious, what do you hope to focus on in school, in film school? There's so many paths that can be taken.
Oh, there's so much. I mean, if I could, I would take everything I could learn in film, everything. Because it's because I'm finding it's like my heart is leading me there, and my whole, like, this film has opened up so much to me. And I'm so blessed because there's so many opportunities that come with making a film. I got to travel to different places with Wapakoni. I went to Berlin in February. It was amazing for Berlinale. I went to Toronto for Imaginative. I've been to Montreal. It's just amazing. And the opportunities for people to see my film and, hear about two-spirited transgender people, it's a blessing. Like, and being in Berlin, it was completely amazing having people come up to you and ask you about your film and just be interested in you because of who you are, right? And it was just, I love it. So my next project is going to be about, I want to make an educational series for people that would be able to use it for schools.
That sounds awesome. We actually here in yeah, that's great. Thank you. I am excited to see. Keep us posted about the educational series. Glenn, I have a question that came in for you. Do you consider your filmmaking weird, decolonial, or both?
Definitely, I think it's both. Yeah, I guess I do have a weird sensibility. I don't know what my sensibility is, but definitely in dealing with archives, as I've sort of alluded to before, it's a way of reframing work that's been previously framed in a very colonial point of view or from a colonial point of view. And I like to interrupt that. I like to insert myself into a different kind of narrative, but using, I guess, archives and archival photographs or recordings from the past in a way as a sort of jumping off point to create new work. So I'm really interested in Indigenous futures and what that can mean, like a kind of futurism, and really am kind of imagining the future from the point of view, like from the present, but also taking the good bits from the past as well. So to create a new space for us queer folks and others.
Yeah, thank you. So this question is for all of you, and I've been thinking about this lately. I just started a podcast called Seedcast. It's an Indigenous storytelling podcast, and I've been thinking the role or the responsibility of preserving culture, or like kind of the self-preservation of self through storytelling, through creative processes, much like film. So do you feel that being a creative person like requires that you give back or tell a particular story, or not do something else? Like, do you feel like you have to stay in the lane of telling Indigenous stories in order for your work to be most successful? Just what's your take on it? It's been something that I've been thinking about a lot, like when our work is not explicitly Indigenous, what does that mean around like cultural preservation or like self-preservation? Yeah, and anyone's welcome to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, like when I think about that, like I have thought, like where's my audience? Is it like Indigenous people or like queer people or like, two-spirit people? And like sometimes I'll make something that's like very queer and doesn't obviously look Indigenous, but I think because it's made by me, it's Indigenous anyway. And then and then there's this other part of me that feels like it's not that I have a responsibility, but more that I feel like it's important for me to tell stories that aren't mainstream. Like I don't think I would feel comfortable telling like a dramatic story that was about someone who wasn't queer and Indigenous, just because I think it's important that since I have that viewpoint, and that viewpoint's very like not seen in mainstream film, I think it's important to like get it out there.
Glenn, Jazmin, do you have takes on this?
Yeah, no, I feel similarly to Thirza. Like, yeah, I mean, I do all kinds of work and all kinds of experimentation. Some of it's more Indigenous focused. Some of it maybe more queer focused, different audiences. But the fact that I'm making it also making anything, you know, as a queer Indigenous person, it's queer and Indigenous regardless. But with that said, I mean, whether I'm dealing with certain issues explicitly within the work, yeah, I do feel like a cultural responsibility in pushing things forward and again creating space. Part of that is building capacity with the youth and teaching them the tools, the animation, and giving back to different communities in that way. And demystifying the whole process of making films and doing animation. I'm very do-it-yourself, kind of low budget. Yeah.
Great.
And how about you, Jazmin?
Oh, I guess I feel the same way. I mean, for myself personally, being First Nations and trans, I would love more representation for Indigenous trans people or Indigenous queer people. And for me, culturally, I think that I feel that my life is just gearing me in that direction. Do you know what I mean? Culturally, I'm learning my culture as I get older. When I was younger, I didn't know my culture. Like my grandma spoke Cree, my family, but I didn't know it. So now that I'm older, I'm taking it upon myself to learn it. So when people are speaking Cree or I see films that are in a different language, I love it because I've never had it and I never knew about it. Right? So personally, that's where my film career is going, and I just hope for it to be more and more successful in that way.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, Jazmin. I feel like you and I are cut from the same cloth. Like I grew up not speaking Spanish. I'm Mexican. I identify as Indigenous, Latinx, and grew up in a family household who really pushed us away from our Mexican identity as a way to be more, successful in life. And so reclaiming that in my mid 30s is kind of a curious, it's like an oddity. It's exciting. And it's also like a little nerve wracking to turn the stories on yourself, and to put yourself out there and, to figure out what is the responsibility. I mean, clearly it's not all on my shoulders, but there is a responsibility that I have with like my family to do it well. But yeah, thanks everyone for entertaining that question. Looks like we have a question from Anne Mary. Do you have any advice for a young person who thinks they may want to make a film one day? Sounds like yeah.
I would say just like try anything. Like use your phone. Like use whatever you have on hand. Like just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't be afraid. Demystify the technology. Use what you have at hand, and that's what I do. I don't use the best the best cameras or lighting or stuff. I use what's available and what's affordable, and sometimes that is just your cell phone. That's perfectly fine. Yeah. Make a lot of sketches.
Yeah.
If you can. Work on your paper edit and stuff like that. Storyboards.
Well, if you live in Canada, you can always look up for Wapakoni's next stopover after COVID, I suppose, once this is all passed. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. And it looks like we have one question for Thirza, and anyone else who's welcome to answer, who feels like they can identify with answering this question. How does your work as a disability justice advocate influence how you make films?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I like the way I think of it is, I have a disability, I have bipolar, so my energy levels are different. So I've become like sort of more self-employed, and I like my schedule is more like flexible than like if I was working in like an office job or something, like I can sleep in because I have like sleep issues. And but at the same time, like when I'm doing a shoot, like there's there's rules around it, and like you have to do things a certain way. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just like letting myself like run my life the way it feels good for me as like a full-time filmmaker.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone. It was a pleasure getting to chat with you. Thank you to Indigenous Showcase and Longhouse Media. Big round of applause for all the filmmakers who are a part of this program. And one thing that I wanted to note is one of the films that we were able to see this evening, it was Kim Hao Lee's film, which features the queer houseless youth. I just did some research just to see what's going on with that houseless encampment, and it turns out that the folks who live there were able to buy 20 acres of the land and are now building permanent housing on that property, which is really, really exciting. They were able to meet a $1.5 million goal in order to purchase the land, and now they're raising $3 million to build on it. So, folks, if you can, please visit the website. It's called alohaliveshere.org, and check out their GoFundMe campaign. It sounds like really amazing and important work happening in the Pacific Islands. Thank you so much, everyone. It's a pleasure having you this evening, and we'll see you all here again soon. Take care.
Thanks so much. Nakamek.